Did you know that at the height of his power, Pablo Escobar was so wealthy that he was literally losing money by the second? I mean, he had so much cash that he had to store it in warehouses. Crazy, right? All right, let's dive into the life of one of history's most infamous figures, Pablo Escobar. This guy wasn't just a drug lord. He was a kingpin who changed the course of Colombia's history. His empire was built on cocaine, and his actions had a massive impact on the country and beyond. Buckle up, because we're about to explore some wild facts about this notorious character. Now, let's talk about the challenges Escobar faced. For starters, he was constantly on the run from law enforcement. The Colombian government, with the help of the US, was hell-bent on taking him down. Escobar didn't just deal with police. He was in a brutal war with rival cartels and the military. His empire was marked by extreme violence. Assassinations, bombings, and corruption were all part of the game. The death toll was staggering, and the chaos he created sent shockwaves throughout Colombia. But despite the odds, Escobar managed to maintain his grip on power for years, using fear and money as his weapons. Now, let's get into the good stuff. 15 crazy facts about Pablo Escobar that you probably didn't know. First off, did you know that he was involved in philanthropy? That's right. Escobar built schools and sports fields in poor neighborhoods, trying to gain the love of the people. He even funded housing projects. Next up, he had a personal zoo. Yup, he imported exotic animals like elephants and hippos to his estate. And guess what? After his death, those hippos became a wild problem for Colombia, and now they roam free in the waterways. Speaking of his lifestyle, Escobar was such a big spender that he would burn cash to keep warm. With billions at his disposal, he would literally lose thousands of dollars to the flames. Imagine that! And here's another wild one. He had a hitman school. Escobar trained his assassins in a facility he built, teaching them everything from combat skills to the art of killing. But it doesn't stop there. His wealth was so immense that he was once on Forbes' list of the world's richest people. In fact, at one point, it was estimated he earned around $420 million a week. He also had a knack for disguises. Escobar would often change his appearance to evade capture, using wigs and makeup. And of course, let's not forget about the infamous Medellin cartel. At its peak, they controlled over 80% of the cocaine smuggled into the United States. Escobar's life was a paradox. He was both a ruthless killer and a beloved figure in some communities. He even had a Robin Hood image among many locals. Pablo Escobar, one of the most notorious figures in history, has left an indelible mark on the world. As the head of the Medellin cartel, Escobar controlled an empire that made him one of the wealthiest and most powerful criminals of his time. While much has been written about him, there are still many lesser-known facts that paint a fuller picture of his life, his empire, and his legacy. In this detailed exploration, we'll uncover 15 insane things you probably didn't know about Pablo Escobar. 1. He had a personal zoo filled with exotic animals. One of the more bizarre aspects of Pablo Escobar's life was his love for exotic animals. Escobar's Hacienda Nápoles, his luxurious estate in Colombia, was home to a private zoo that housed hundreds of animals. These included elephants, giraffes, ostriches, zebras, and even hippos, which he had illegally imported into the country. After his death, many of these animals were transferred to zoos, but some, like the hippos, escaped into the wild and now thrive in Colombia's rivers, causing ongoing environmental issues. 2. He offered to pay off Colombia's national debt. At the height of his power, Pablo Escobar's wealth was so immense that he offered to pay off Colombia's national debt. In the late 1980s, Colombia owed approximately $10 billion, and Escobar, ever the shrewd businessman, offered to clear this debt in exchange for immunity from prosecution. This offer, while rejected, highlights the scale of his wealth and his willingness to use it as a tool for power. 3. He burned $2 million in cash to keep his daughter warm. The sheer volume of cash that Escobar dealt with on a daily basis was mind-boggling. So much so that at one point, when his family was hiding in the mountains during a manhunt, Escobar reportedly burned $2 million in cash to keep his daughter warm. The idea of burning such an astronomical amount of money underscores the vastness of his wealth and the lengths he would go to protect his family. 4. He was responsible for the murder of thousands. Pablo Escobar's empire was built on a foundation of violence and terror. It's estimated that he was responsible for the deaths of around 4,000 people, including journalists, politicians, police officers, and innocent civilians. Escobar's ruthlessness was a key element in maintaining his power, and his legacy is one of bloodshed and fear. The most infamous of these assassinations was that of Colombian presidential candidate Luis Carlos Galán, who was gunned down at a rally in 1989. 5. He ran for public office in Colombia. In the early 1980s, Escobar made an attempt to enter Colombian politics. He was elected as an alternate member of the Colombian Congress, which provided him with a level of legal immunity. His foray into politics was part of his broader strategy to gain legitimacy and protect his empire. However, his political career was short-lived, as his criminal activities were exposed, leading to his removal from office and increasing pressure from the government. 6. He used submarines to smuggle drugs. Escobar's ingenuity in smuggling cocaine into the United States was remarkable. While many are aware of the use of planes, boats, and trucks, fewer know that he also utilized submarines. These submersibles, some of which were semi-submersible and others fully submersible, were capable of carrying tons of cocaine. This method made it incredibly difficult for authorities to intercept the shipments, further fueling the success of his drug empire. 7. His drug empire generated $420 million a week. At the height of its power, the Medellin cartel was generating an estimated $420 million a week in revenue. This staggering amount made Pablo Escobar one of the richest men in the world. His empire controlled 80% of the global cocaine market, and it's estimated that his personal wealth reached around $30 billion at its peak. However, the vast amounts of cash also posed a significant problem, as the cartel struggled to launder the money and keep it safe from both the authorities and rival gangs. 8. He built his own prison, La Catedral. In a deal with the Colombian government, Escobar agreed to surrender and serve time in prison, but on his own terms. He built his own luxurious prison, known as La Catedral, which was more like a resort than a penitentiary. The facility included a soccer field, a giant dollhouse for his daughter, a bar, and a jacuzzi. He continued to run his drug empire from within the prison walls, hosting lavish parties and receiving guests at will. His imprisonment was so scandalous that the government eventually decided to transfer him to a standard prison, which led to his escape. 9. He was once the 7th richest man in the world. According to Forbes magazine, Pablo Escobar was listed as the 7th richest man in the world in 1989. His net worth was estimated at $25 billion, making him one of the wealthiest individuals globally. Despite his criminal background, his immense wealth and influence were undeniable, and his inclusion on such a list was a testament to the scale of his operations. 10. He had a bounty on his head, dead or alive. As Escobar's power grew, so did the efforts to bring him down. Both the Colombian government and the United States offered rewards for his capture. At one point, the bounty on his head reached $10 million. Escobar was constantly on the run, living in fear of assassination or capture. His ability to evade capture for so long was due in part to his vast network of informants and the immense power and wealth he wielded, allowing him to buy protection and loyalty. 11. He was obsessed with his image and public relations. Pablo Escobar was acutely aware of his public image and worked hard to craft a persona that would endear him to the poor of Colombia. He was known for his philanthropic efforts, including building housing for the homeless, funding public parks, and even constructing football fields. These actions earned him the nickname Robin Hood among some of the local population. Escobar's strategic charity work was a calculated move to gain public support and protect himself from law enforcement, as many saw him as a benefactor rather than a criminal. 12. His cash had to be stored in warehouses. The sheer amount of cash flowing into Escobar's empire was so vast that it posed significant logistical challenges. The Medellin cartel stored billions of dollars in cash in warehouses across Colombia. The money was often packed in rubber bands and stored in large quantities. It's estimated that the cartel lost about 10% of its cash each year due to spoilage, either rats eating the money or the bills simply rotting away due to moisture and poor storage conditions. 13. He funded his own army. To protect his empire, Escobar funded and equipped his own private army. This force, numbering in the thousands, included soldiers, mercenaries, and hitmen known as sicarios. They were well-armed, trained, and loyal to Escobar, carrying out assassinations, kidnappings, and other violent acts at his behest. This army was one of the main reasons Escobar was able to maintain his power for so long, as it provided him with the muscle needed to fend off both government forces and rival cartels. 14. His death marked the end of an era. Pablo Escobar's death on December 2, 1993, marked the end of an era in Colombia's history. After a long and intense manhunt, he was tracked down and killed by Colombian National Police with assistance from the United States DEA. His death was celebrated by many, but it also led to a power vacuum that was quickly filled by other cartels. While Escobar's reign of terror ended with his death, the drug trade continued, and the violence associated with it persisted, albeit in a different form. 15. His legacy lives on in pop culture. Pablo Escobar's life and legacy have had a lasting impact on popular culture. His story has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, movies, and television series. The Netflix series Narcos, which dramatizes Escobar's rise and fall, has brought his story to a global audience, cementing his status as one of the most infamous criminals in history. While his actions caused untold suffering, the fascination with his life and the empire he built continues to captivate people around the world. Pablo Escobar was a man of contradictions. He was both a ruthless criminal and a benefactor to many of Colombia's poor. His life was filled with excess, violence, and intrigue, and his impact on the world continues to be felt today. The 15 facts highlighted in this exploration provide a glimpse into the complexity of his character and the scale of his influence. While his story is one of infamy, it is also a cautionary tale of the dangers of unchecked power and the devastating consequences of a life of crime. Now, let's get to the most shocking fact that really summarizes Escobar's complex life. Despite being a monster to many, he was a father who loved his children deeply. He once said, "All my life, I have been a criminal, but I will never let my children become one." This contradiction perfectly encapsulates the duality of his existence. He was a family man and a ruthless drug lord. It's this complexity that makes his story so fascinating and tragic. So, to wrap it all up, Pablo Escobar was a man of extremes. His life was filled with philanthropy and violence, love and hatred, wealth and destruction. It's hard to pin him down as just a villain or a hero. He was both and neither. The legacy he left behind continues to spark debates and discussions to this day. Now, I want to hear from you. Which fact about Pablo Escobar surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning about more crazy criminal figures or historical events, make sure to check out our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more wild stories.